Let me start with a story. In Tokyo, there sits a 98-year-old doctor who still goes to work every day. His mind? Razor sharp. His memory? Impeccable. And yet, he warns his patients, most people over 65 are unknowingly destroying their memory every single day. Now that sounds dramatic, but he sets right. Because what he's talking about isn't genetics, or aging, or bad luck. It's a habit. A simple daily behavior that's become so normalized we don't even question it anymore. I've spent decades studying the biochemistry of the brain, and I can tell you this habit literally rewires your neurons, starves your hippocampus, and accelerates cognitive decline. So if you've ever wondered why you forget names, misplace things, or feel mentally foggy after 65, the answer might not be age. It might be something you're doing every day. Today, I'll show you what this habit is, how it sabotages your brain, and what you can do starting tomorrow morning to reverse the damage. Let's get something straight from the start. The human brain was never designed to handle the modern diet. Our ancestors didn't have vending machines, frappuccinos, or breakfast cereals disguised as heart healthy. They had real food, fiber, protein, fat, and their brains thrived on it. Today, we've traded all that for sweetness. The result? Our memories are fading faster than ever. When we talk about excessive sugar and processed carbohydrates, we're not just talking about dessert. We're talking about the backbone of the modern diet. Bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, granola bars, and that innocent low-fat yogurt. All of them contribute to a continuous flood of glucose in the bloodstream. And here's the problem. Every time you spike your blood sugar, you spike your insulin. Over time, that insulin stops working properly. That's called insulin resistance. And while most people associate it with diabetes or obesity, few realize it also happens inside the brain. I call it type 3 diabetes. It's when your neurons can't access energy efficiently because insulin isn't doing its job. The brain, starved of energy, begins to falter. Think of it like a city running on a faulty power grid, brownouts everywhere, lights flickering, systems shutting down. That's what's happening in the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for learning and memory. Now, most people believe memory loss after 65 is normal, just part of aging, but that's not true. What's normal is change. What's not normal is decline. The difference between those two outcomes often comes down to how much sugar and refined carbohydrate you consume each day. Studies show that even moderate elevations in blood sugar are linked to measurable shrinkage of the hippocampus. You literally lose brain tissue. And once that tissue is gone, it doesn't come back easily. Here's what's insidious about it. Sugar doesn't just mess with your metabolism, it also hijacks your reward system. Every time you eat it, dopamine is released, giving you that quick hit of pleasure. It's the same neurological pathway involved in addiction. Over time, the brain becomes desensitized. You need more sugar to feel the same reward. Meanwhile, the inflammation caused by this constant biochemical roller coaster eats away at your neurons. The very circuits responsible for clear thinking and recall are being corroded by your diet. It's not just sweets either. Processed carbohydrates, those white foods like bread, rice, pasta, and even some so-called whole grains break down into sugar almost immediately. The glycemic index may differ, but the end result is the same: glucose overload. When you do this 3 times a day, every day for decades, you're essentially marinating your brain in sugar. Imagine pouring syrup into your computer's motherboard. That's what you're doing to your neurons. And let's talk about inflammation. Sugar triggers an immune response. Chronic inflammation disrupts the delicate architecture of your brain. Microglia, your brain's immune cells, go into overdrive trying to protect you, but in doing so, they start damaging synapses, the connections between neurons that allow memory formation. It's like friendly fire in the brain. Now, some people think they're safe because they don't eat desserts or candy. But the food industry is sneaky. Sugar hides under more than 50 different names: maltose, dextrose, evaporated cane juice, high fructose corn syrup. It's in salad dressings, sauces, breads, even supposedly healthy granola. So, when the average person thinks they're consuming a reasonable amount of sugar, they're actually eating 2 or 3 times the recommended daily intake, often without realizing it. The Japanese doctor I mentioned earlier, the one still practicing at 98, has a simple rule: no added sugar, ever. He says, your body runs on energy, not on sweetness. And he's right. When you eat whole, unprocessed foods, vegetables, nuts, fish, healthy fats, your blood sugar stays stable. Insulin stays in check. The brain gets a steady supply of fuel without the damaging highs and lows. Over time, this translates into sharper memory, better focus, and even protection against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So what's the takeaway? Sugar isn't just empty calories. It's toxic to the brain in excess. It robs your neurons of energy, fuels inflammation, and rewires your reward system in ways that make it nearly impossible to stop craving more. The first step to protecting your memory isn't found in a pill or a crossword puzzle. It's on your plate. When you cut out added sugars and refined carbs, something remarkable happens within weeks. Brain fog lifts. Energy stabilizes. The hippocampus begins to recover. Your neurons start firing in rhythm again. You remember names, places, ideas that had been slipping away. That's not aging in reverse. It's biology in balance. The oldest doctor in Japan doesn't have a secret supplement or a magic herb. What he has is wisdom and discipline. He understands that every spoonful of sugar comes with a cost. The choice is simple: feed your brain or feed your cravings. One keeps your memory alive, the other slowly erases it. And the truth, as uncomfortable as it is that most people are doing the latter. Every muffin, every healthy smoothie, every sugary latte, they're not just feeding the body, they're starving the mind. The good news: you can stop today. Your brain will thank you tomorrow and for decades to come. Let's talk about what's really happening inside your brain when your memory begins to slip. Most people think it's just a natural part of aging, a slow fading of the lights. But that's not what the science shows. What's actually happening is biochemical, not chronological. It's the cumulative effect of decades of metabolic abuse, most of it silent, invisible, and entirely preventable. Your brain is an energy hog. It represents only 2% of your body weight, but consumes nearly 25% of your total. Every thought, every memory, every emotion requires glucose to fuel neurons. But here's the irony: while the brain depends on glucose, it's also the first organ to suffer when there's too much of it. You see, your neurons don't like extremes. They need a steady, consistent flow of energy, not spikes, not crashes. And those spikes, caused by years of overconsumption of sugar and refined carbohydrates, are what begin to dismantle the system from within. When you eat sugar, your blood glucose rises and insulin rushes in to shuttle that glucose into your cells. For a while, it works fine, but over time, decades of breakfast pastries, sweetened coffee, and processed snacks, your cells stop listening. Insulin levels stay high, but the glucose doesn't get used properly. This is insulin resistance, and while most people think of it as a problem for the body, diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, it's equally catastrophic for the brain. Inside your head, insulin plays another role. It helps neurons absorb glucose for energy and supports the growth of new synapses, the connections that allow you to learn and remember. When your brain becomes insulin resistant, neurons are starved of fuel. They sputter, misfire, and eventually die. Scientists call this condition cerebral glucose hypometabolism, but let's call it what it really is. Your brain is running out of gas. Now, the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, is particularly vulnerable. This small seahorse-shaped structure is responsible for converting short-term memories into long-term ones. It's the first place to suffer when metabolic health declines. In people with chronically high blood sugar, MRI scans show a smaller hippocampus. That's not just a statistic, it's structural loss. The very tissue that holds your memories, your sense of place, even your personality, begins to wither. And it's not just glucose that's the problem. Elevated insulin suppresses another critical brain molecule, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as brain fertilizer. It helps neurons grow, form new connections, and repair themselves. Without it, your brain's ability to adapt and store information collapses. Low BDNF levels are consistently found in people with depression, cognitive decline, and Alzheimer's disease. So when you drown your body in insulin, you're effectively starving your brain of growth. Let's add another layer: inflammation. Excess sugar triggers the production of advanced glycation end products, appropriately abbreviated as AGGs. These molecules stick to proteins, fats, and DNA, damaging them in the process. They also activate your immune system, keeping it in a constant state of low-grade inflammation. Inside the brain, that inflammation activates microglia, the immune cells meant to protect your neurons. But when they're overactivated, they become destructive. They start pruning synapses, those tiny bridges of communication, faster than you can make new ones. That's when memory loss becomes noticeable. Think about it this way. Every time you eat something loaded with sugar, you're not just satisfying a craving. You're lighting a tiny fire in your brain. One fire doesn't do much, but thousands of them over years and decades burn away the connections that make you you. Now let's zoom out to the big picture. This process doesn't happen overnight. It starts subtly. You forget where you put your keys. You can't recall a word that's on the tip of your tongue. You walk into a room and can't remember why. These are not random lapses. They're biochemical warning signs. Your brain's way of telling you it's struggling to keep up. In a healthy brain, glucose metabolism, insulin signaling, and inflammation are in balance. But when the system is overwhelmed by processed food, by chronic stress, by poor sleep, the scales tip. Neurons become sluggish, communication falters, plaques begin to form, and before long, those biochemical changes turn into cognitive decline. Let me be clear, this is not destiny, it's not aging, it's biochemistry. And the beauty of biochemistry is that it can be reversed if you act early enough. Studies show that improving insulin sensitivity through diet, exercise, and fasting can actually increase hippocampal volume. The brain, unlike what we used to believe, can heal. Neurons can grow new connections. Memory can be restored. So when people say, "I'm just getting older," I tell them, no, you're getting overloaded. Overloaded with glucose, insulin, and inflammation. You're not running out of time, you're running out of metabolic resilience. The cure isn't a new drug or a fancy supplement. It's metabolic balance. Eat real food, cut the sugar, move your body, sleep deeply, manage stress. That's not a prescription, it's prevention. The science is clear. Memory loss isn't an inevitable part of aging. It's a metabolic symptom. Fix the metabolism, and you fix the brain. The oldest doctor in Japan doesn't have superhuman genetics. What he has is metabolic stability. His hippocampus still thrives because his neurons still get the steady, clean fuel they were designed for. And that's the real secret to a sharp memory. Not luck, not youth, but biochemical harmony. Here's the hard truth. The problem isn't just that people eat too much sugar. It's that most of them don't even realize they're doing it. Sugar has become so woven into our culture, so hidden in our foods, that even the most health-conscious among us are walking right into the trap. It's not just the donuts and candy bars. It's the healthy granola, the low-fat yogurt, the whole-grain cereal, the fruit smoothie, and even that little splash of all-natural juice you add to your breakfast. The habit is invisible because the food industry made it that way. Let's start with the morning ritual. You wake up, maybe you're trying to be good. You grab a bowl of cereal labeled whole grain or fortified with vitamins. The box has a heart symbol on it. Maybe it even says doctor recommended. But what's really inside that box? Refined carbohydrates and sugar, often 20 to 30 grams per serving before you even add the milk. You might as well be eating a cookie for breakfast. That's not an exaggeration. It's biochemistry. Then there's the coffee, the morning latte or cappuccino. Just a little sweetness to take the edge off. That pump of syrup, another 10 or 20 grams of sugar. By 9 a.m., your blood sugar is soaring, your insulin is spiking, and your brain is already riding the roller coaster. You feel sharp for an hour, then the crash comes. You're foggy, irritable, craving another hit of something sweet or starchy. And you think, I must need more coffee. No, you need more balance. This pattern continues all day long. The mid-morning snack bar labeled energy boost, it's sugar wrapped in marketing. The lunchtime sandwich on white or wheat bread, same problem. Bread is just glucose waiting to happen. Then you wash it down with a diet soda thinking you're making the healthy choice, but those artificial sweeteners can still trigger insulin responses and cravings. You see, the body doesn't just respond to taste, it responds to expectation. The mere sweetness primes your brain for more. And it doesn't stop at meals. Sugar is hiding in places you'd never expect: salad dressings, ketchup, tomato sauce, soups, even crackers. The average jar of pasta sauce contains more sugar than a candy bar. Manufacturers add it for one simple reason: to keep you coming back. Sugar hijacks your brain's reward center, releasing dopamine just like a drug. The more you eat, the more you want. The food industry knows this. They engineer products to hit the bliss point, that perfect balance of sugar, fat, and salt that maximizes pleasure and minimizes satiety. It's not a recipe, it's a formula for dependence. Now, imagine you're over 65. You've spent a lifetime trusting food labels, believing in low-fat, sugar-free, and healthy choice marketing. You've probably been told by your doctor to cut down on fat to protect your heart, so you swapped butter for margarine and eggs for cereal. You didn't know that when you take fat out of food, it tastes like cardboard, so manufacturers replaced it with sugar to make it palatable. You were trying to eat healthy. You were following the rules, but the rules were wrong. The result? A generation of people unknowingly addicted to sugar. Not the obvious kind, but the subtle kind, the one that sneaks in under the radar. You don't taste it because it's blended in. You don't feel it because the effects are slow and cumulative. But over time, it takes its toll. Chronic high insulin levels damage blood vessels, impair brain function, and accelerate aging from the inside out. Memory loss, fatigue, mood swings, weight gain, it's all connected. The Japanese doctor who inspired this discussion understood this long before the science caught up. He saw patients who were active, non-smokers, not overweight, and yet their cognitive health was declining. The common denominator? Their diet had slowly become westernized, more processed foods, more sugar, less fiber. He called it the invisible diet because it looked healthy on the surface, but was metabolically disastrous underneath. Here's where it gets even more deceptive. The labeling. The food industry has over 50 different names for sugar, glucose, sucrose, maltose, fructose, corn syrup, evaporated cane juice, rice syrup, maltodextrin. They know most people won't recognize them all, so they scatter the names throughout the ingredient list to disguise the total. Legally, they can do that. Ethically, that's another story. And let's not forget the psychological part. We associate sweetness with comfort, reward, and celebration. Birthdays, holidays, even funerals, it's always there. We use sugar to soothe, to celebrate, to connect. It's emotional currency. That makes it harder to break the habit because it's not just chemical, it's cultural. So how do you fight something that's everywhere, in everything, and reinforced by decades of habit? Awareness is the first step. Read the labels. If a product has more than 5 ingredients or contains anything you can't pronounce, it's probably not food, it's a science experiment. Choose real foods, the kind that don't need a nutrition label: vegetables, fish, nuts, eggs, meat, fruit, in moderation. Cook at home. Control your ingredients. When you strip away the hidden sugars, something extraordinary happens. Your palate resets. Food starts to taste the way it's supposed to. You don't crave sweetness anymore. You crave nourishment. Your energy stabilizes. Your memory sharpens. The fog lifts. That's not magic. That's metabolism finding its rhythm again. The most dangerous habits aren't the ones we can see. They're the ones we don't even know we have. Sugar sneaks into our lives disguised as health, hiding behind comforting slogans and bright packaging. But once you see the trick, you can't unsee it. The power shifts back to you. And that's the moment your brain starts to heal, not in the lab, not with a pill, but in your own kitchen, one real meal at a time. Let me be blunt. You can't out-prescribe a bad lifestyle. We've built a culture that believes every symptom has a pill, every disease a quick fix, every problem a chemical solution. But the brain doesn't work that way. You can't medicate your way to memory. You have to earn it through choices, habits, and consistency. That's not philosophy. That's physiology. When it comes to memory decline, most people are led to believe their only hope lies in pharmaceuticals, pills that promise sharper focus, better recall, slower aging. The commercials make it look easy. Take this once a day and keep living life as usual. But the truth is less glamorous. Those drugs may mask the symptoms for a while, but they don't address the cause. They don't stop the inflammation. They don't fix the insulin resistance. They don't rebuild the neurons that years of metabolic abuse have destroyed. At best, they delay the inevitable. At worst, they give you false confidence while the underlying fire keeps burning. This is where the Japanese doctor's philosophy stands in stark contrast. He's not against medicine. He's a physician, after all, but he understands its limits. Medicine treats disease, he says, but lifestyle creates health. That's the distinction most of the world has forgotten. We've medicalized lifestyle problems. We use drugs to lower blood sugar instead of changing the diet that caused it. We take sleeping pills instead of managing stress. We rely on antidepressants when what we really need is connection, sunlight, and movement. And then we wonder why our memories fade, our energy dips, and our brains slow down. Let's look at this biochemically. Memory loss, cognitive decline, and brain fog are not diseases in themselves. They're symptoms of a body out of balance. High insulin levels, chronic inflammation, poor sleep, and sedentary behavior all feed the same destructive cycle. If you want to protect your brain, you don't need a new pill. You need to restore metabolic harmony. That means stabilizing blood sugar, improving mitochondrial function, and reducing inflammation through natural daily choices. Start with food. Whole, unprocessed food is medicine. Real medicine. It communicates with your genes, your hormones, your gut, and your brain in ways that pharmaceuticals can't replicate. When you eat food that nature made, rich in fiber, healthy fats, and micronutrients, you reduce oxidative stress. You nourish your microbiome. You provide your brain with the steady energy it needs to form and retain memories. Compare that to the processed food diet, which creates energy spikes and crashes, damages neurons, and promotes inflammation. One fuels your brain, the other fries it. Then there's movement. Not just exercise, movement. Our bodies are designed to move all day long, not sit for 8 hours and then rush to the gym for 30 minutes. Movement increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients while flushing out toxins. It boosts BDNF, that miracle molecule that grows new neurons. It's the cheapest, most powerful brain-enhancing therapy on earth, and it's free. Yet most people spend their days seated, staring at screens, barely breathing deeply enough to oxygenate their own cells. Sleep, too, is non-negotiable. During deep sleep, your brain literally washes itself. The glymphatic system, your brain's cleanup crew, removes metabolic waste that accumulates during the day. Without enough restorative sleep, those toxins build up, leading to inflammation and cognitive decline. No drug can replicate that process. You can't swallow a capsule to make your brain clean itself. You can only let it happen naturally through rest, rhythm, and respect for your body's design. And then there's stress, perhaps the most underestimated memory killer of them all. Chronic stress floods the brain with cortisol, shrinking the hippocampus and impairing synaptic plasticity. You can't form or retrieve memories effectively when your brain is stuck in survival mode. Yet how do most people manage stress? More coffee, more alcohol, more screens, more distractions. The result? A fried nervous system and a foggy mind. But if you cultivate calm through mindfulness, time in nature, or even simple breathing exercises, you shift your physiology from chaos to coherence. That's when healing begins. Here's the irony. The very things that strengthen your brain, nutrition, movement, sleep, and calm, don't make money for the medical industry. Pills do. But a pill doesn't build neurons. It can't rewire your habits. Lifestyle does that. Every meal, every walk, every night of good sleep, it all adds up to metabolic stability, which in turn becomes cognitive stability. The pharmaceutical approach treats the symptom, not the system. You forget a name, you take a drug, you can't sleep, you take another one, you feel anxious, you add a third. Before long, you're juggling prescriptions that interact with each other and cloud your mind even more. The doctor in Japan would tell you this: if your medicine cabinet is getting fuller, your life is getting emptier. It's not a moral judgment, it's a biological one. Health is not the absence of symptoms, it's the presence of balance. This isn't about rejecting medicine, it's about using it wisely when necessary, not habitually. Medicine can save your life in crisis, but lifestyle sustains it. It's the difference between managing disease and cultivating vitality. The tragedy is that most people wait until something breaks, until the diagnosis comes, until the fog thickens, until the memory lapses become alarming, before they act. But by then, the damage has already been accumulating for years. The oldest doctor in Japan has lived long enough to see this pattern over and over. Those who rely solely on medicine decline. Those who live with intention, who eat real food, move daily, sleep deeply, and manage their minds, stay sharp well into old age. Their brains don't fade because their habits don't fail them. That's the real prescription for memory, not another drug, but a disciplined, deliberate way of living that honors the biology of being human. Here's the part everyone needs to hear, the part that gives this entire conversation meaning. It's not too late. The human brain is not a fixed machine doomed to rust with age. It's a living, breathing, adapting organ that can heal, rewire, and even regrow. That's called neuroplasticity. And it's the reason hope is not just emotional, it's biological. For years, science told us the opposite. We were taught that after a certain age, the brain stops changing. You're born with a set number of neurons, and when they die, that's it. Game over. But modern neuroscience has blown that myth to pieces. We now know the brain continues to form new connections throughout life, even into your 80s and 90s. The catch, you have to give it the right environment to do so. Think of your brain like a garden. Every thought, every experience, every nutrient is a seed. Some grow into healthy, strong connections. Others wither. When you feed that garden with real food, movement, and mindfulness, you nourish it. When you flood it with sugar, toxins, and stress, you starve it. The Japanese doctor who still works at 98 isn't just lucky, he's been tending his garden for nearly a century. Neuroplasticity depends on energy, oxygen, and stimulation, all of which are shaped by your daily choices. When you eliminate processed sugar and refined carbs, you reduce inflammation and stabilize blood sugar, giving your neurons a clean, steady source of fuel. When you move your body, you increase blood flow, delivering oxygen and nutrients that encourage brain growth. And when you challenge your mind, learn a new skill, play an instrument, engage socially, you trigger the production of new neural connections. That's how you build cognitive resilience. But here's the key. Neuroplasticity is not automatic. It's potential waiting to be activated. And the switch that turns it on or off is lifestyle. Your habits either create an environment for growth or one for decay. Every sugary snack, every sleepless night, every stressful day without relief turns down the brain's ability to adapt. But every healthy meal, every walk in the sunlight, every deep breath turns it back up again. Let's look at what happens on a cellular level. The brain's ability to form new connections relies on something called synaptic plasticity, the flexibility of communication between neurons. That process is powered by BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the same molecule we talked about earlier. It acts like fertilizer for neurons, helping them grow stronger and connect more efficiently. The good news? You can boost BDNF naturally. Exercise, particularly aerobic movement like walking or cycling, increases BDNF production. So does fasting, reducing sugar intake, and getting adequate sleep. Even positive emotion and gratitude increase its levels. That's not a coincidence, it's biology's way of rewarding balance. Now, when people start to lose memory after 65, it's easy to feel powerless. They think it's just age. But if age were the cause, everyone would decline at the same rate. And that's not what we see. Some 80-year-olds are sharp as a tack, while others can't remember what day it is. The difference isn't time, it's terrain. The brain that's fed properly, rested, and stimulated continues to grow. The one drowned in sugar, stress, and medication withers. The good news is that this terrain can change. In clinical studies, even elderly participants who switch to whole food, low sugar diets show measurable improvements in memory and focus within months. The hippocampus can actually increase in volume, a sign that neurons are growing back. This isn't miracle science, it's metabolic repair. When the brain's energy systems are restored, it does what it was always designed to do, heal. And it's not just about diet. Social connection plays a massive role. Loneliness and isolation have been shown to shrink the brain faster than almost any other factor. The doctor in Japan sees this clearly. His sharpest patients aren't just eating well, they're living with purpose. They stay curious, they contribute, they laugh, they have a reason to wake up every morning. Purpose stimulates the same reward pathways that sugar hijacks, but in a healthy, sustainable way. That's why communities with strong social bonds, like the so-called blue zones, have both longer lifespans and better cognitive health.